Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdicus Steve, and today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy, Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been a hectic and frantic day, but other than that,
I was
life
going to
is
say,
good.
it
I'm
didn't come
on this
across as
side of the dirt,
wonderful
right? So who cares?
when you're like, wonderful. Like, that's not selling the whole shebang. Like, come on, man. It's wonderful. It's
It's
great.
freaking awesome. So awesome. Everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome, like the song.
Yeah.
So
Just like the
tonight we're
song.
going to talk about tropes, which, having kind of been in this hobby for so long, I kind of was like, do I need to Google what are D&D tropes? Because I haven't really thought about this in so long. Like, we have our own, GM play style and what have you of like, we've got our little cluster, and yet so many other people on social media talk about, oh, this tropey thing here and that tropey thing there. And it's like, is that a trope? We've never done that. Or is that a trope? Okay. I mean, I guess we've done it a time or two.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're and I don't know. I don't know if some things really are tropes, right? Like we talk about them like they are, and they've become memes, like the bard that seduces everything. But I've never really seen that in any of our games. They meet in a tavern. I've done it a few times. I usually do it more as a joke, and
Mhm.
like put a spin on it. Um,
Right.
and
Oh,
but like it's like I'm obviously kind of poking fun at that trope.
right. So, like, to me, when I look at tropes, like, I went and I'm like, all right, what do I think are like the iconic things? And the fact that I game with kids and I'm bringing them into the hobby, like, I want them to experience some of the things that are a regular occurrence. So, like, off air, I was kind of like, joking around or talking about that meme where, the bartender asks, like, oh, why do you guys bring weapons into the bar? It's like mimics, the bartender laughs, the fighter laughs, the table laughs. We kill the table. Great time was had by all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at some point in time, like my kids need to go through that. So like I'm gonna literally set that up at some point in time. Just it's a trope. It's a thing that everyone's done, but they haven't.
Yeah, it's new to them, and also generally when things become tropes, there's a reason for it, right? Like
Yes.
they're kind of like time honored traditions, but not only that is like there's a commonality to tropes that most of us understand, right? Even if we're new to D&D, so we haven't experienced them through the game, but we've experienced them through other forms of media. So like we kind of know what things are. Like we know about meeting in the tavern. We know about the quest giver, which is great because like and even like a new player they can get it right. Like they're like, oh, if I was playing a video game, this person would have the exclamation over their head, right? So they can jump in and they don't need to know everything about D&D to begin enjoying the game because there's these commonalities. I remember Ryan was working on a different web comic on his own, and one of the characters says to another character, you totally did the night, right? uh but he was using an acronym, right? And for damsel in distress, right? Like they like she was conning the knight because she pretended to be the damsel in distress in order to con him. So like you can do things like that, right? You can do something like the princess or prince in a tower and rescue them, right? And turn that on their head. I mean, that's what the first Shrek was pretty much, right? Like they
Yes.
basically did they did the DID, right? And the damsel in distress, and it turns out like the damsel is cursed and has and also was like kind of like trying not to really get rescued unless like it was someone they wanted to be rescued by. And
Yes.
also like I've seen the web comic and the meme where like the dragon and the princess are kind of like in cahoots, and like the
Well,
princess
there's
will either give the thumbs up or thumbs down on the knight, and if it's the thumbs down, the dragon just kind of plucks them far away.
there's also the one of like, the knight who's like, coming to, like, I'm here to save my princess, or I'm here for my princess. And the dragon's like, but there's no one here. And he's like, but you're my princess.
Yeah.
So
So
like there's always ways to like bend and twist these kinds of things and put a different spin on it, put a your take on it, scenario, and have fun with it, because as you kind of brought up, like, they're there for a reason. They've lasted the test of time, and therefore, it's worthwhile.
there's also like the quest board. Like I don't think we've ever really done that in our games, but like I've heard other people talk about it
Mhm.
and acknowledge it as a thing. So I feel like that's gotten into the DNA of the game as well. Where I know one of my friends was in a game and they were struggling with what they were supposed to be doing in that game, and they're like, "Is there a quest board?" And the DM's like, "Yes." And they find the quest board. Are there any quests? No. So that's
Like
not
that
that's not a good example of what to do with that trope, but I
right.
think I've seen it enough times at this point that it is a trope in the game that you can kind of use, right? Like
But
you
if you're
could
gonna
literally have villains like vetting potential foes through the quest board, because they're sending them off on these like hazards that they've created to see if those people are going to be a problem in the future, or just basically a bunch of death traps to start getting rid of the would be heroes while they're doing their machinations, right?
Oh, I I absolutely love that. Here, I will pay this astronomical amount of, gold if you go and do this incredibly dangerous task. And everybody goes off on it, dies. That's that's
Yeah,
pure gold.
pure gold.
Or I mean, in a very gamey, kind of situation of like, well, are you providing your monsters more experience? Are they gaining levels because they're defeating all of these low-level superhero or low-level heroes? I think that's an amusing, scenario to kind of talk about. Um, but I haven't really done anything with the quest board, but it is something that, like, I think there needs to be a certain level of like technology to like we can carry a pen and a piece of paper, write something down, and stick it up on a board at the post office, or wherever other people might gather. But like, you would have, like, for the most part, people would have to like get parchment, quill and ink at home, let the thing dry, and then bring like a hammer and a nail to the quest board and tack it up there and hope it doesn't rain, because it's just gonna like wash away your sign, your paper, your ink, and
Oh no, use one of those boards that has a little roof over top that you, so this way it doesn't get rained on. I'm sure that'll be enough.
well, your mic level just like way jumped up.
I know. I was just told it was really low, so I've increased the volume.
Okay, but like, those things, even if you got the little roof, like, that's not going to protect it from more than just the straight down. Like, the wind's going to blow in from the side, wind's going to blow in from the front. Like,
So I feel
definitely not.
like in my earlier gaming, it would have like my DM would have used like a town crier,
Mhm.
right? Because that like makes a little more sense for the time,
Sure.
and also I guess it's weird in the sense that D&D has kind of become a character of D&D at this point, right? So
Yeah.
like when we first started playing, and I'm not saying that like this is how it should be played or people even need to go back to this, but it was based off of Western European medieval fantasy, and it kind of stuck to like that technology level, and what would be available. Peasants probably didn't read and write, and so actually writing things on a board would have been mostly useless.
Right.
um Even like we've been called out in some videos because there's a lot of different versions of the game I have jumbled in my head,
Right.
And like, I've mentioned it before on here, but like the Strixhaven where I'm like 5 gold a week for for a part-time job, that's crazy. And then you look at the DMG now, or not the DMG, but the player's handbook, and like, and the values have gone up a lot since, when we first started playing, and it's like,
Right.
you know, commoners would have never seen gold pieces. Everything, it always would have been silver,
Right.
and the idea of earning, a single gold piece in a year is, might be the most that they earn.
Yeah, and that's to an extent like the thought I had, and when you
Mm.
start having those conversations, like, yeah, we're called out, and we're well, no, we apparently didn't read that section of the book and keep it in our head, but
Yeah,
it's a
yeah. I was
you
gonna
know
say we definitely read it because I will say, because of the way the early years of Nerdarchy were, we literally read everything because we broke down every book and every increment. Now, how much we retained or remembered, I don't know, because there was definitely times when we shot like 10 videos in a day based off of like the DMG.
yeah, I mean, we did back in the early days. I mean, we would record 10 videos every Saturday, to be able to do 2 videos per day, Monday through Friday. And those were wackier videos where we just turn on the camera and go, and you just put in the intro, put in the outro, and done.
So I guess, and then there's certain D&D tropes that like they really don't make a whole lot of sense, and I'm okay if they go away. Like, why are all the elves in the world the same no matter where they live, and the dwarves and halflings and gnomes? Like every culture but the human culture is basically kind of like that in
and
D&D. That's very tropey for D&D.
and I would like to actually see difference, like when you look at elves, like you've got high elves and wood elves and Eladrin, and they're all basically in and around the same thing. You've got the drow, and even the drow are split amongst like a single subrace has multiple cultures between Menzoberranzan and the drow that live on or near the surface that worship the moon goddess. So like if you could have one subrace have a split like that, and I'm certain that there's other factions I might not even be aware of, but like,
Yeah, what if your drow are drastically different and they worship a scorpion god instead of a spider god?
well, I meant like as far as like the more like actual lore, not our individual lore.
That's not our lord. That's Eberron.
Oh yeah. Oh shoot. Yeah, you're right.
That's
I
that's Xandric Eberron, which is I always kind of thought it was kind of funny, even though I love Keith Baker and the work that he does. But I did think that was funny. It's like, we'll make our drill a lot different.
I mean, with that change, it does change things away from Lolth. So I don't know. I'm not one to criticize. The mighty Keith Baker. I love Eberron. There's a lot of great stuff about it, and the more interesting things that I get into with D&D, like the more I appreciate Eberron and its vast difference
Yeah.
from your typical D&D world, which that in and of itself is a trope.
Well, true, and then there's the things like dwarves are greedy, so are dragons, and elves are flighty, right? So it's kind of like, again, that sameness with all the races. And those are some of the tropes that like it is good to see those kind of get broken up and change, and the characterizations. And I think we see that in our games a lot, where we try and make our characters more individualistic,
Mhm.
and like I always like to try and take like a little bit of the race and intertwine it with other things, um to kind of change it up and mix it up, so it's not like just you're just playing a dwarf and they're going to speak with a Scottish accent, and I don't even know where that came from. I don't know why dwarves speak with a Scottish accent now. Was that is that a Lord of the Rings thing, or was that happening before that?
I could not tell you where it came from.
I need to know who started this nonsense.
I think it's long before Lord of the Rings. It's amusing, but
Yeah,
it's there. Um,
true.
Doug says Zendrick drow live on the surface too. In a desert environment, totally different.
Yeah. I thought they were in the jungles, but I could be wrong too. There was like the fire drow too. They had like elemental vehicles and stuff, which is kind of cool, but not a trope. So actually, Evron was really good for that, where it kind of did break up what you expected from a lot of your D&D typical D&D stuff. They did a good job of taking everything you expect to find in D&D, putting it in there, but in an untropy way. So you mentioned wanting to introduce your kids to more tropes because they're going to be new to them. Although your son does a lot of reading, so like he might pick up on them.
Right, but he hasn't gotten into like any of the actual D&D novels yet.
Uh
I've got the Dark Elf trilogy. Well, not the Dark Elf trilogy, the Icewind Dale trilogy. It's in his room. I gave it to him like over the summer. He was looking for something to read. I'm like, here, check this out. And I was hoping that would like, oh, we've got literally a couple hundred Dragonlance novels in the house, a couple hundred, Forgotten Realms novels in the house. I might be exaggerating, but it's a lot. This could keep you going for a while, so that we're not buying more books.
yeah.
And like he read the back cover, sounded interesting. I don't think he's read anything of it, so I'm like, like literally just this past weekend, we were like in his room, checking out his pet snakes, and my daughter's like, why do you have a D&D book in here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she pulled out, she pointed towards the Icewind Dale, and I'm like, you still haven't read that yet, have you? No. Like,
Well, he's got his own things that he likes reading, and then this way, when he starts running D&D games, they're going to be different types of D&D games because he didn't read all the same books you and I read.
That's true. He'll have his own tropes.
He's got his own taste.
Yeah, I with a lot of things, it's just like I offer exposure, and he can choose to be involved or not, and that's something. So far he has not decided to give it a go. He's super excited for his Warforged Paladin, and he's mad that I didn't allow him to start at 4th level, so that he has to wait to gain access to Magic Initiate so he can get the shield spell. He's going with that high armor class build, and it is what it is.
So it seems like in like every D&D world that I've ever played in, even in like our own games, there's always these like advanced civilizations that have been destroyed and they're long gone and past, and ages past. Why can't it just be like, why couldn't there just been a steady progression to where we're at now? What would that even look like in a D&D world? Is it because then there's no cool shit to find? Is that what the problem is?
I think like if it's just a steady incline, where are the artifacts coming from? Like no one's gonna know anything. There are no ruins to explore. There are no, ages past of glorious magic where.
Well, there could be ruins. There could still be ruins, right? But but there wouldn't be the ages past of glorious magic.
The glorious magic where it's like, okay, look, every third wizard under the sun is able to craft these beings of obnoxious power, that'll get, somehow lost through the ages. And then someday, an adventurer finds it and, oh my God, this thing is amazing. Whereas, like now, like if it's like, oh, well, if you want magic items, well, then maybe you have to figure out how to craft it, or you might have to like, seriously do something to beseech the gods to like show you how to get something better than, just a +1 weapon, because that's all that they've managed to make so far.
But I guess that being said, though, like you could go other places that are unexplored that have also just had, steady progression and have gone in different directions than you're used to, and it would be new and exotic and fresh. And maybe they've like outpaced where you're at, so you could kind of explore that way. I feel like that would be like a really novel campaign setting where it was like, oh no, like, we're living at the pinnacle of civilization right now.
But
No,
would you do a pinnacle of civilization, but not do anything different than the typical fantasy world, or would you add something new to it?
well, you could still do the typical fantasy world, right? And not only that, though, like you could. What if you took it from like you're at the pinnacle of civilization, right? And it's like call it the first age, if you would, and it's at the tipping point, right? And the player, like what you do in the game, could decide what happens in the world and whether or not it tips one way or the other, right? To being like, oh no, 1,000 years from now, people are going to be finding the ruins you left behind with all the cool magic items and artifacts, or did the players figure a way to bring it back from the brink and keep things progressing?
I mean, that's definitely a way to turn everything on its side and approach it from a different angle. You could also like run that campaign, and then once it falls, like you then jump, and like, okay, now we're gonna run in this world, but it's after all of the collapses happen, and the next essentially age picks in, and now you can name drop all the things that happened in the previous age with lore checks.
So it also kind of like this idea kind of makes me think of Planar Zoo a little bit, because the
Sure.
idea is like you're all living in an exhibit, but you don't know you're living in an exhibit, and they're like, well, we had to put things like challenges in the world and things to be discovered and explored, because if not, the humanoids all get rambunctious and they just start breaking out. And that's the premise behind the Planar Zoo. So like that is in essence like that's kind of like that a little bit, because like yes, there are dungeons and things that could have come from before, but they're not, because they're actually just all planted there by essentially aliens.
It's just the way you said it. Essentially aliens.
Aliens.
I just see that guy from the History Channel every time we say
Well, you're supposed to. That's the way
it.
it's supposed to work.
Because aliens. There you
Because
go.
aliens. When we can't explain it, it had to be aliens. So,
So,
go
do you
ahead.
have a trope that you absolutely, will not use, have not used, or like just utterly pushes you away?
I don't know. Like, I think to me, it's about like how can you make it your own? How can you turn it on its head? Like, heck, even the bard, like the bard seduction trope. I'm like, if I pull that out as a GM, like someone's getting hit with a succubus or incubus for sure. Right, probably. But like, or even that, you could like have different layers to it. Where it starts off with like the bard trope and seduction, and then it turns out it's actually just an incubus. But it turns out it's more complicated than that. Like they're seducing you, but not for the reasons you think. It's actually like it's an act because they want to hire you, or like they're actually under the thumb of their infernal lord, and they're trying to get out, and they need mortals to help them, and then it's like, okay, do you help them or not?
So, like, what do you feel about, kind of going off of that, of like the trope of like the person who is like your, stalwart ally through the whole game being like the big bad, or being, the turncoat?
It's a lot more difficult in a D&D game, because that usually eventually means like one of the players has to be the bad guy. Um, and it's happened. We've like done it a few times, but usually it tends to be for like a one shot or something, or a short campaign arc, because that's a really tough thing to sell throughout a whole campaign.
So like I don't mean like a PC turning on But like in the first game, with Narcitus, like there was talk about Analasalar being a bad guy, like table talk, not like character talk.
Yeah.
And that was not anything that I had planned, but like I toyed with the idea afterward, but like I'm generally too much of a goody goody to like
Uh,
take away, the friend,
to fully
um,
commit. Yeah.
to fully commit to that angle. So I turned against it, but like I know that that's one of those things of like having somebody that's an ally and supporter to the party, and just be like, as you get towards the end of the game or maybe even the final session of like, oh, now we turn the knife, and all of the pieces fit into place. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
No, I think that can be pretty rewarding, especially if like it's not like the last moment in the game per se, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe the last quarter of or the last act of the whole story. So that it's really had time to build up and you've
Mm-hmm.
kind of had time to let it simmer for a while and to really like build those bonds and relationships so that then give them time to really feel the betrayal and
Yeah.
then kind of like not just feel it but work through it, right? Work through it as the party, the players, and then and then resolve it at the end,
Right.
right? So like if this is your level, you're going to campaign level 20 in your game, then around you would want to drop that around 15ish, so they have some time to settle with them and they have to work through it and figure it out,
Right.
and maybe also like undo all the things that have been done because they didn't know that that person was their enemy all along.
Right. And I just, I picture, Wash from Firefly of like, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Again, and also like those things are a lot easier to pull off in a novel
mm-hmm.
sometimes than they are in a D&D game. Now, the way you can do it though, I would say, is if you don't pick that person from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because they say hindsight is 2020, right? And after you get to a certain place, because also like you don't know which NPCs they're going to attach themselves to. You never do. It's like what the NPC you make up on a whim is the one they're probably going to love. So, which isn't going to be the one you plan to betray them. But if
Right.
you kind of leave it open ended, and then like throughout the campaign, maybe you're taking notes, and then like you kind of pick out like the pivotal points throughout the stories. If you can then have that person then betray them, and like give the players a chance where you can show them all the places the betrayals happened, like even if they weren't really there when you initially did it, but
Mm-hmm.
like with a little extra explanation, like they see the stuff that they didn't see before.
Right.
Again, also very tricky because you don't want to be like you don't want to do it in a way that you're just going to monologue to your players for 40 minutes about all of these things. Like you want there to be an interactive discovery process.
Right. Right. And those are things that I kind of look at and try to see. I mean, despite the fact that we're on here, like every game that I run, every conversation that you have, like not only is it educational for those coming to us for advice, but at the same time I'm looking to always learn and improve, so that I just keep dialing up the skill meter.
Yeah, I mean, right now in your game, aren't we playing against one of the tropes? Isn't it never get on the boat?
Never getting on a boat is definitely one of those things, and now it's the opposite. Don't get off the boat.
Yeah, like now we're playing Don't Get Off the Boat, and like that was like the game that we picked is the one where we want to be on the boat.
So the premise that I threw out there, long-winded paragraph, full rich backstory, long-winded paragraph, full rich backstory, or we all live on a boat, and they picked we all live on a boat. Curse you.
You were screwed from the get go. I knew it as soon as I saw that list, without even reading it and knowing what any of the things were. Like, here's the one you put the least amount of work in. They will definitely pick this one.
So, we decided during session 0 that there's this object, this relic that, a cleric is, bringing along, and it has to go somewhere, and they're waiting for some kind of clue or cue or, literal message from the gods to say this is where you have to go.
Uh-huh.
But the item is not trackable while it's on open waters.
The
So they've got to
chosen
be
one is another trope, and that's kind of what we're doing. Like the
right, but
bearer of the object.
yeah, but I mean, like, she's not in the party. She's just kind of there of like, all right, I'm doing a thing. Um, but so the fact that the item is not trackable on open waters, like they don't want to go on land.
Which
And
has been total bullshit so far because they've tracked it everywhere.
so all right, you were attacked by a storm, you were, found
A
by
magic evil storm.
it's just a storm.
There's
You
like
have
freaking faces and stuff. It was definitely an evil storm. And laughter. Laughter equals evil.
you had this fiendish woman. You were attacked by pirates, and you were attacked by, shark people, the Sagan. So I don't know. Storm might have just been happenstance. The fiendish person probably not so much. Pirates, it's pirates. Pirates can be anywhere. And the shark people, whether they were lying or not, who knows? They just said you were going through their territory. So I don't know.
Wait a minute. Who is the fiendish person? I don't even remember that part. Is that part of the storm?
Yeah.
That's why. All right. They're the same thing to me. Clearly. So in that game, we just had this session yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah.
yesterday. So it's somewhat fresh in my mind. Um, but so I had suggested my character get keel hauled in the game, and everybody thought I was crazy. And but so like I'm playing a Warforged essentially, and I didn't want us to stop the ship. But also, like I said, like we're supposed to be keeping this object hidden, or at least keep it moving. And like so far, in our opinion, like they've been following us the whole time with no problems. So we're like, they must be tracking us somehow. So we like searched the ship, and I'm like, you know what? Under the ship, that's where I would hide it. So like I was like, hey, can you guys keel haul me so I can look at the bottom of the boat and see if I can find a tracking thing? Was that there before I looked?
I will neither confirm nor deny that.
Son of a bitch. So I don't know if it is, but yeah. So I imagine Ted did what I would have did and been like, if they're putting a lot of effort into this, maybe this is a thing.
That is an absolutely correct statement that Dave would do that, and it's sound logic and very much against tropes to kind of go by the seat of your pants and say, hey, you look, they've got a great idea, that logic checks out, I'm gonna go ahead and reward that creativity and put something into it. So when the barbarian Warforged, if you will, decides, you know what, I don't need to breathe, tie a rope to my arms and legs, I'm going to go underneath and kind of like reverse crab walk, trying to look through the bottom of this boat to see if anything has been affixed. I'm like, well, the first issue you're going to have, does salvage have dark vision? It's like, crap, we need light. So the Triton has a sunblade, and I don't know how they got a sunblade, because I think that's like more powerful magic item than what I thought you guys could have.
I don't know, man. That's between you and your players.
But whatever. So
Carlos is cheating, maybe.
I don't know. I'm not pointing any fingers until I go and look at the characters. Look at my notes.
Yeah.
But like, okay, it can produce light and this and that. Then they convince the frog person who can breathe underwater that they should come as well. And Carlos, this little frog, is definitely playing. I'm a coward. I really have no desire to do this, but I drag him in under anyway. And they spend like all told a little over 2 hours like searching the bottom of this boat. And after the first hour goes by, you know, they roll an investigation check. Rolls high enough. They find a stone. It's weird. They spend time prying the thing off with a crowbar. Dave gets a level of exhaustion, or Dave's character anyway.
No, I found it exhausting too.
It's one of those minor things of like if you just kind of
a sunblade is only rare, man.
Okay.
I thought that was like you could get like 2 items or 1 rare. Like is I think what we did, right?
Yeah, it was like 2 uncommon or a rare. I think was what I had. I don't have that sheet open at the moment.
Yeah, because I did the 2 uncommon, so maybe they didn't cheat. But also maybe you just like didn't like. Wait a minute, that sounds too good. And you're like,
it does sound too good.
I agree. I was thinking the same thing, but I needed a light source at the time, so I wasn't gonna argue about it.
Yeah, because it's like most of the time it's like, oh, is someone gonna does someone have access to the light spell? Like their spellcaster in the party is the bard.
Yeah,
and the bard does not have the most diverse range of spells, so it's pretty tight at the moment. There's a barbarian, a rogue, a paladin, a bard, and a monk. So not a whole lot of spellcaster going on. So
we could punch things really hard, though.
You absolutely got the ability to hit hard. You've got the barbarian hits hard, the monk can hit hard, the swashbuckler can hit hard, the paladin can hit hard. All to help make up for the not hitting hard bard.
Yeah, he barely hits it off. So there's that.
Well, we did have, him riding and peeing on you, so that was something.
Yeah, frogs. Frog people, what are you gonna do?
So we're past the halfway mark, so I got a couple things to kind of show off. 2 things that are going to be going onto the giveaway shelf, 2 things that are just kind of like, say as a thank you. So this is just a small representative of the Mwangi Expanse that's coming out from WizKids. I'm not even going to attempt to Damari Daji, I believe is the name.
We're gonna call him Treebeard because he's got a magnificent green beard. I'm jealous.
This dude was like, all right, there is quite a lot of tree folk like minis that have come out throughout the years, mostly by WizKids. I've got one that's as big as this guy from Reaper that I painted. So at some point in time, I'm gonna put together a whole.
I like that other mini, but I think I like this one better.
Yeah. He's actually usually up here behind me.
Yeah.
On the table over behind the computer now.
He's leading the March of the Ents.
So totally setting up a March of the Ents kind of thing that I want to get a cool picture of, but I got to get it all framed properly and whatnot. I'm certain everyone out there is aware of the Call of the Netherdeep that's come out. So this is actually going on the giveaway shelf. So we got one of these to send to one of you happy people in one of our future giveaways. And then from our friends over at Kobold Press, we got a copy of Warlock Lairs that's going on the shelf to kind of explore and use, and then a pocket-sized and pocket edition, because it's not really going to fit in your pocket, of the Vault of Magic, which has a magic item in here made by yours truly. So this is going to go on the shelf as well to give to one of you fine folks in the future. And again, if you win the giveaway and you want it signed, I can sign it in anywhere in the book, because I was part of that project.
They're like, please don't deface my book, Ted.
Hey, we had a full size to give away, and the person who won Totally wanted it signed. Signed it, on the armor of the Nagobu. So a lot of fun. But that'll be for whatever said winner that gets the pocket edition Vault of Magic, because it's magic items, and magic items are always fun.
Well, I also have something to show off.
Oh, cool! What do you got?
I am right now currently. I am currently drinking the Dungeons and Dark Roast coffee. Taylor was nice enough to send these over from Adventurers Coffee Company. So they're mixing the nerdy with with the coffee, and I think they're two great things that go together. Also, if you order the Dungeons and Dark Roast, they send you a D20 with it as well. But they had reached out to us and be like, "Hey, I want to send you coffee," and I'm like, "Hey, I drink a lot of coffee." So I'm currently drinking it right now, and it is quite good.
So, do they have a logo D20 or?
No, it's just a regular D20. Which right now, they sent me that and a Grogo pen, which both of them are currently MIA, and they literally just came Friday or Saturday, because my wife's cat's a butthole. So
not the family took it, just the cats.
I'm blaming. It was on my. I had it all together in one spot. It has vanished. I'm blaming the cat because the cat loves to steal little things and run off with them. And hopefully my dog doesn't eat them, because the dog is really good about not chewing things and getting a hold of things, with one caveat. If the cats drop it in the family room where she resides for the most part, it is fair game. So, like, she wouldn't take a thing off of a place, but if the cats bring it with them, then clearly that's okay. Because she understands that the cats are in charge.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
To her anyway. That's the pecking order in the house.
So, like, that's why I tend to bring things down to, the nerd dungeon, so that the animals don't get to it. And
I move too slowly.
By the animals, I mean like the furry ones and the ones that
the two-legged ones.
Yes. Because my family just loves to just pick stuff up, and especially my daughter, once she's done with it, wherever she is, that's where it goes, and it
sometimes that's the 9th layer of hell, or the 66th layer of the abyss, but it doesn't really matter because Ted will never find it again. How was it the displacer beast that disappeared for like 6 months?
6 to 8 months it was gone, and it's still like there's all kinds of finger pointing and what have you.
Oh, is it still gone?
No, I found it.
I thought it resurfaced. Yeah,
it resurfaced. It's here. It's safely with the other interchangeable stuffed animals that go behind me. But no, perfect case in point. Happened this weekend. I was out doing stuff with the family on Saturday because we, had a, change in our typical gaming plan, and gaming got moved to Sunday. And because it was such a beautiful day, they wound up, suggesting on the way home that I open up the sunroof. And it's, it's got the ability to kind of tilt, but it also can like completely go. And, I didn't think anything of it. And we got involved in a conversation, and 5-10 minutes later we're home. It's still beautiful and bright and sunny outside. Didn't think anything of it. We started getting into dinner and a game of Betrayal at House on the Hill. And
who won?
By this point in time, was that
who won?
So I wound up.
I heard this other story before. I didn't hear about the betrayer on the House on the Hill.
So I wound up becoming the betrayer. I had already died, and I was leading my friends back here to drown them so that they can join me in death. And I wound up, I say but as in meaning the game, wound up killing my wife's character, and that left the kids. And everything else was like just kind of already set up and perfect. So like I attempted to fight them and I was not well prepared. So they managed to get away. They found the way out of the house.
But at
And
least for all eternity, you're going to haunt that house with your wife. It's a
yeah.
lovely story. It's a love story. Very romantic.
um so yeah, I love Betrayal at House on the Hill. I will always want to play that game. But so as the game goes on, we start hearing the sounds of, the rain that we fully were expecting. There was stuff that was left outside on the driveway that I made sure got put away because I knew rain was coming. But because I was not the one to push the button to open the sunroof, I was not the one thinking about closing the sunroof.
Who cares about that? Can we focus on the fact that you got your ass kicked by 2 little kids in that game?
I didn't get my ass kicked. I lost.
Yeah, you got your ass kicked. You lost.
All I had to do was kill one of the 2 kids.
Yeah.
Because out of like 3 survivors, at least 2 of them have to survive. Because if half don't survive,
yeah,
lose.
Then you fail.
So, it was. So sunroof was open. It rained, poured through. All the stuff in my center console. Well, I have one of those collapsible staves, so like it shrinks down to this big, but like if you pop the pin, it balloons up to like a 4-foot staff, and it's there as a hey, do you need a weapon in a instant? You've got it. It's not fabulous, but I like having survival tools and whatever have. But yeah, so I had the thing, it was there. And because I brought everything in yesterday morning to kind of deal with the rain soaked stuff, it was sitting on the table. And after the kids got home from school today, they're like, all right, Dad, you got home after we went to bed. What is this? It took us a half hour to figure out how to put it back together. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God, one of your kids almost died. So, they're like, what is this? Through their head. You always got one of your kids killed.
So, I don't know who opened it, where they were when it opened, what wound up happening, beyond the fact that it took 3 of them, like 20 to 30 minutes to figure out how to close it. And I'm like, dude, you just do this. And it takes like 10 seconds or less. Like, come on. But when you don't know what something is, they apparently failed their investigations.
So, well, actually, it's like you guys should have learned the first rule, and that was don't touch my stuff.
Yes, that was actually part of this afternoon's lesson.
Yeah, that's why you should rig all your stuff to electrocute people when they touch it. Just to be a given. So also, Euro Games, live. Been watching you guys content for years, but never caught you guys live before. Welcome to the live show.
Hey, awesome! Thanks for catching us live, and thanks for the comments.
We're pretty consistent though. Monday nights, Tuesday nights, and Friday afternoons. Like we're at the same spot at the same times. We're not super elusive. Oh, that would be good. I'm laughing because of Frag. It's like imagine giving them a finger trap. By giving, I'm just picturing him like leaving them around and the kids, get stuck. I feel like
there are the ones in the Addams Family movie, so that would be apropos.
I don't remember the ones from the movies. And which movie? Like, because there's been a couple.
The ones where Christina Ricci was Wednesday. It's like they're like literally like it's a dragon head that bites the fingers.
That would be a cool magic item.
All right, well we're gonna have to
cursed. More like a cursed item. Like we don't do enough cursed items.
Sure.
And maybe we should, but also because cursed items in 5e are a little bit lame.
So one of the items in the Mage Forge I was looking at actually has a curse that if you figure out the curse, there's like a benefit. So like I think we have to like add the caveat that remove curse doesn't make this go away.
Oh yeah. That magic item's called the loophole.
Uh,
I don't know which one Ted's talking about because there's 250 of them, and I do not have them all memorized.
well, I happened to be like
Yeah.
playing with the list today, and it was one of the ones that was, that was in there, that I had created, and I didn't even remember creating this one.
Oh.
Uh, but when I looked at it, because I was trying to match up some artwork, we found some art assets that we already had that we're looking to put into place. And I'm like, all right, do we have anything that fits this? And it was an item I didn't recognize. I looked at it, didn't match the artwork, but I'm like, all right, well, what does this do? And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. It was Chaotic Beginnings is what it was called. So that was the one
I
that
guess
got
because
it.
once you figure it out, the ending is less chaotic because you know the loophole, so you're no longer cursed. It's a
So
benefit.
it's a bracelet that has like a string of beads on it, and every day you roll randomly and you gain resistance to an energy type. You then roll 2d6, and it switches your stats around. So if you roll a 1 and a 6, your strength and charisma scores flip flop.
Well, that sucks.
It, when you attune to it, that's your drawback. Well, uh, once you figure out how to undo the curse, you get a bonus. I think it's to either one stat or all your stats, and then you get to pick. Your you don't have to deal with a curse anymore, but you still get a random energy type. So there's definitely a caveat at the end. It's a powerful item meant for later games when it's possible to be able to, solve. But it takes work.
So, did you start the new game with the kids?
I have not. I'm still waiting to talk to my other two nephews to figure out, their involvement, what characters they want to make, and then kind of look at a school schedule and figure out if everybody's on the same day off thing, when we can make that happen.
How many players is in that game?
That'll be two, four. It'll be six players. Once Chris joins.
And they're all kids, but one adult, right?
Yeah, five kids, one adult,
Oh,
ranging from 10 to 15.
yeah, you poor guys. Talk
Yep.
about talk about herding cats. talk about players that are going to do things that you're not going to expect.
Well, I mean, Gabe and Billy are great for not only role playing, but making odd choices. So they,
Yeah,
they definitely keep me on my toes.
Billy's fun to play with, although he can be a little obnoxious at times because he's a teenager, so it's to be expected.
Yeah, I haven't had Billy obnoxious at any of the games yet.
In my games, he always wants to get drunk or high, and is always looking to either cast or have someone else cast Goodberry, and they like to call it Weed Berries,
Okay.
which is really odd because he also comes from a very straight laced family. So
That
it's
could be
like
why.
generational repression coming out.
So that could very well be why, but he's the youngest in a group playing with essentially all adults, whereas with with our group, the next oldest to him is got him by like 20 years.
Yeah, that's true. In the groups that I've played with him in, he is the youngest and the only kid.
Whereas with our group, there's Gabe, Teddy, and Gabrielle all underneath of him. So
Yeah.
like that, the style of game that I'm running, that stuff's just not an option. So not that I don't allow it. It's just like I haven't presented it and no one's gone seeking it.
Yeah.
So
That's good. That probably keeps him in check a little bit. It's like, oh, I have a little cousin here that I can't like.
corrupt.
So I have to be on better behavior. So that's what I need. I need a little cousin available to keep him in line. Maybe they get to be a little ridiculous at times. So you know. But whatever. We've had all types. I've played with adults that are far worse, so I can't
Oh,
complain too much.
I mean, there are there are times that it completely gets called out that anyone who plays D&D loves the potty humor and whatever have you. So it's a scenario where it's not hard to just be like, yep, we're still 12.
Yeah, and it seems pretty universal too, because like we've played with a lot of different groups and a lot of different people at this point. So
Yep.
it's so like, but again, at the end of the day, we're playing a game where we're like, at the core, we're just adults playing make believe with some rules and some dice for randomness.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess that stuff's to be expected.
So like, when you boil it down to that, it does sound absolutely ridiculous, but it's a hobby that we've been doing for over 30 years. It's something that I don't see me stopping in the next 30 years.
Well, kind of the cool thing about the group that you're running for is, that group has got that group consists of like 4 people that we have not played with a lot.
Mhm.
And like one of them kind of was like not in the hobby for a little while and come back. Your sister, my wife, is still pretty new to the hobby and also kind of very much a casual.
Right.
Um, Pratima is very new, and like in Carlos, we've never played with Carlos either. So that group's really like refreshing in that regard. And we had two things happen with the dice during that game. One, I rolled double ones with advantage. Booyah! I'm the best at rolling dice, or at least rolling ones. Which is funny because today I was tagged in a TikTok by someone talking about stories from people rolling ones, and so in TikTok they have a thing where someone does a video and you can stitch it, and like
Mhm.
it's like you put the videos together, and so Juice, I had played in his Pathfinder game, and then he's like, "Well, I got a couple of them, and they're all from the same person from the same game because I'm terrible at rolling dice. I have so many bad roll stories at this point."
So you
Uh,
you double one and then you double 20 later on.
oh yeah, I did do that. Well, but that's not the one I was thinking of. Like,
You were thinking,
I totally brushed aside the double 20 because it was very anticlimactical, really. But for Tima, who's a very new player, rolled 20s on both their attack rolls, and got to use both of their second level smite spells.
yeah. So the new character playing a paladin, fully afresh with their spells, pretty much defending the back, portion of the boat
By
themselves
themselves. Oh,
because
there
they
was one NPC over there, but
well, yeah, but I mean, it was fodder. Like it was like, oh, I'm gonna go put out a fire. I don't really have a weapon here.
Frags in the
Oh,
chat trying to one up me.
well, the two of you.
When our dice powers combine, the world ends. Not the game world, the real world.
I would love to run a game with the two of you just to see over the course of the campaign who can possibly roll more nat ones. That would be quite comical. Uh, but so she moved in and she rolls the nat 20, utterly just defeats the one Sahagan sorcerer, and
I just
then
rolled really well too, like as far as the damage.
uh-huh. And then when she goes over to the other one, I don't know if it was Carlos, but somebody else was just like, man, how awesome would it be if she crit again? And she drops the dice, and like her and Carlos were like,
I
and
think
I'm
she
like,
rolled. I think both those attacks she rolled on D&D Beyond because she's like oscillating back and forth between rolling real dice and D&D Beyond, and D&D Beyond came through on that round.
and it was like, holy crap. And I'm like, is it a crit or is it a nat one? Like it's the only those are the only options.
Yeah.
But thankfully that sorcerer, she rolled a lot lower on the damage that
Yeah, I mean between the two attacks, it was like close to 90 points of damage, I think. But most of it being from the first attack.
50 and 37.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I'm a numbers person. I remember,
That's 87. That would be close to 90.
yeah, I know.
So yeah, that was pretty impressive.
But the sorcerer did manage to get away and fight another day, but not the first one. First one did.
Yeah, but he's gonna have a scar. That should definitely leave a scar. I mean, also it's a sunblade, so it probably like cauterized it right there, instant scar. Bam.
Sure, totally. I'll buy that.
Sure. Well, it is that time, sadly. But we'll be back tomorrow at the same time playing Nobody's Heroes. I think we're in like session 11, so we only have one more left.
Well, that tomorrow and one more.
They've been found.
You got your die in your pen?
I do. Woo! Thank you, Taylor.
So April 1st, I know we're a little ways away, but April 1st will be the next untraditionally arcane, and that's not an April Fool's joke. We'll be playing.
Not maybe you guys are gonna all show up and I know you have to find something in loop to just keep playing. So that'll be fun. But anyway, come back tomorrow night. Come back Friday. We'll be here. I think Friday afternoon at noon. Talking to someone. They've got a martial arts fighting RPG game. So we're gonna talk about that and check that out a little bit. And so until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.